Okay, well, we are at the top of the hour, so I am going to start. Hi everyone. Welcome to How PubMed Works, Medical Subject Headings, or MeSH. My name is Margot Malachowski, and I'm an Education and Outreach Coordinator for the network of the National Library of Medicine, NNLM. I am in Region 7. My office is at UMass Chan Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I'm here with Rebecca Brown from the NNLM National Training Office. Okay, let's take a look at today's agenda. We will cover 4 topics today. First, we will define MeSH and discuss why we use it. Plus, we will look at entry terms. We will look at the hierarchical structure of MeSH and talk about automatic explosion. We will talk about the 4 types of MeSH terms and look at examples of each. And then we will dissect a MeSH record to help you better understand all the components that are included. I will be doing live demos throughout this class, and you're welcome to follow along on a second screen if you have that kind of setup, or a second tab if you would like to. So, what are MeSH terms and why are they useful? MeSH stands for Medical Subject Headings, and it's the National Library of Medicine's controlled vocabulary that represents concepts in biomedical literature, and that is number 1 on your handout. MeSH is a controlled vocabulary. Because there can be many ways to describe a single concept, MeSH provides a way to connect all the possible variant terms to the preferred MeSH heading, which gives uniformity and consistency to indexing and cataloging. Note that in PubMed, MeSH is applied to only citations that are indexed for Medline. Citations indexed for Medline make up the vast majority of PubMed citations. MeSH headings are organized hierarchically into several main branches, and that's where the idea of the MeSH tree comes from. And that is number 2 on your handout. MeSH terms are organized hierarchically. And MeSH terms are revised annually to reflect changes in biomedical literature, and that is number 3 on your handout. MeSH is revised annually. During the MeSH annual update, terms can be added, replaced, or reorganized within the hierarchy. MeSH terms are usually applied within 24 hours of a citation being added to the catalog. Let's take a look at an example of a MeSH term. Here we see the MeSH term myocardial infarction. The variants, or synonyms for this term, listed on the right side of the slide are called entry terms, and that is number 4 on your handout. The terms that are synonymous or close in scope to the preferred MeSH term are called entry terms. These are the terms that the MeSH vocabulary associates with myocardial infarction. In PubMed, we can run a search using the term heart attack or any of the other entry terms on this list, and it automatically maps or connects to the preferred MeSH term for this concept, which is myocardial infarction. It is the preferred or official MeSH term that exists on the Medline citation. So this mapping from entry term to preferred term means that searches with any of these terms will retrieve relevant results. In fact, sometimes using an entry term can be especially effective because PubMed will search for both the entry term that you used in all fields and the MeSH term it maps to in the MeSH part of the record. And that is what we see here with the eye strain example on the slide. So I ran a search in PubMed using the term eye strain, and you see that here in the search box. And then I located my search details by clicking on Advanced under the search box right here. And then I scrolled down to my history and search details, and the details show that eye strain mapped to the preferred MeSH term, which is asthenopia. This is because PubMed's automatic term mapping recognized eye strain as an entry term. We will be teaching a session on automatic term mapping next week on Wednesday, November 19th, and it's not too late to register. I highly recommend the session if you want to understand how PubMed processes the terms you enter into the search box. Rebecca has put the link to the registration page in the chat box. Any biomedical terms that you use in your PubMed search, such as eye strain or heart attack, should map to the MeSH terms, which enhances your search and ensures that you retrieve relevant Medline citations. The search details shows us that PubMed search for eye strain as well right here in all fields, finding relevant results by keyword. Now I'd like you to try searching with an entry term in PubMed. Go to pubmed.gov and search for insomnia. Rebecca has put the link in the chat. Do not use any search tags or quotation marks. And after you have run your search, click Advanced to locate your search details to see how the term mapped. And let me know in the chat box which MeSH term did insomnia map to. So you're in PubMed, searching, doing a simple search on insomnia, clicking on Advanced, which is underneath, scrolling down to search history in details, and looking in details. Okay, I see some comments coming into the chat. Yes, perfect. Insomnia mapped to sleep initiation and maintenance disorders, which is the preferred MeSH heading for this concept. Let me show you how this looks in MeSH. I'm going to open up another tab where I have PubMed. Now, I am going to speak briefly about this banner up at the top because we will see it on every page that we look at today. This banner is up, but there are citations being added to PubMed every day because publishers are the ones that add the citations to PubMed. So for the past weeks, PubMed has continually added new citations. So I just wanted to say that at the get-go because this will show up in every single page and I'll be scrolling past it. Okay, so here we are in PubMed. Now I want to get us to the MeSH database, and I'll show you an easy way to get to the MeSH database if you're at PubMed. If you scroll down on any PubMed page that you're at, down to this grade section at the bottom, you will see a link to the MeSH database, and I will click on that right here. Okay, and here I am at the MeSH database. Now, I will search for insomnia, and here are my results page in MeSH. There are 3 results. I will click on this sleep initiation and maintenance disorders result. And now I am on the page for sleep initiation and maintenance disorders in MeSH. If I scroll down the page, I will come to the entry terms. So you can see the entry terms right here. And up at the top, you see insomnia disorder, insomnia disorders, insomnia, insomnias, chronic insomnia, insomnia, comma, chronic. So right here, insomnia is right here. And this is the reason why our search pulled in the MeSH term sleep initiation and maintenance disorders. And our search will retrieve all the Medline citations or records, that are indexed with that term. Now I'm going to keep this record open and go back to my slides for a moment. Any questions so far? Anything I can clarify before we move on?
I'll just mention there was one question. I think it was Angela. Is there a way to suspend the automatic mapping when you search? And I just said, basically, we're not covering that in this class, but please register for the automatic term mapping class next, I guess that's next Wednesday. So,
Yes, yes. And just like this class, if you can't make it at that day and time, we do record. So if you're registered, we'll make sure you get the recording. Okay.
there
Yeah,
is, let's see. So, Olivier, can you explain the difference between this page, oh, and that page? So we were in mesh, and I'm going to click on this mesh B. Hold on, I'm going to look at, oh, this, okay. Are you able to click on that?
sure. Let me take a look.
Yeah, that's the mesh browser.
Oh, okay.
Would you like me to talk about it?
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is what, it's asking. So this is, um,
Oh, here it is.
yeah. So this is the same mesh headings, but it tends to be used by the catalogers or the indexers more frequently than, um, I'll just say the general public, you and I, everyone in
Hmm.
this classroom. There's not a lot of difference, but I don't know if we want to just put insomnia in there, in that search there and just see what happens when we do that. Yeah, and on this one, I guess there, I know we have scope notes on the other one. So I really think that this is, and we have qualifiers. It's just laid out differently, and it's what the indexers use.
Yeah, it looks more like a cataloging page.
Yeah.
Um, and I will show you features in the mesh database that don't exist on this page too. And maybe
Yeah. And
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I think that's a good point. There, you can't do everything that you can do in the mesh database that we just showed you a moment ago that you can. So I hope that makes sense, Olivier.
okay.
I think
Anything
that's it.
else before we move
That's it.
on? Okay. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the structure of mesh and automatic explosion. This slide shows the main branches or categories of mesh. The four most highly used branches are anatomy, chemicals and drugs category, the diseases category, and organisms. Notice there are plus signs next to every branch, and that means there are sub-branches. So let me go back to my sleep initiation and maintenance disorders record. If I scroll a bit further down the page, you will see the tree structure for this term. Let's click on all mesh categories to get a bird's eye view of the hierarchy. So here I am at all mesh categories, and you will see that same list that was on the slide. When I click on the anatomy category, you will see the sub-branches, such as, if I can continue down, body regions. And if we look down this list, we see head. And there are plus signs next to these subheadings too, sub-branches, I'm sorry. And this is what we mean by when we refer to the hierarchy. As we click into each sub-branch, the terms become more specific. So if I click on the term head, I come to the mesh record for head. And if I scroll down this mesh record, we'll see the mesh tree here. So we see that face is a more narrow term than head, but it's broader than cheek or chin or eye or mouth. Let's click on eye because we see there are more sub-branches to eye here. And here we're at the mesh record for eye. And I'm scrolling down again to look at this mesh tree. So in the mesh record for eye, we see that eye is in two different branches. of the MeSH hierarchy. It's in the body regions branch and in the sense organs branch. Now, the next thing I'm about to say is important. We get a lot of questions about it. When you run a search in PubMed using a broad term, such as I, your search will automatically explode to include all the more narrow, more specific terms from all of the branches in your search term. So if you run a search in PubMed with I, you will get citations indexed with eyebrows, eyelashes, cornea, iris, and retina. This is called automatic explosion, and this is designed to bring in relevant results. And that is number 5 on your handout. Automatic explosion includes all the more narrow terms in your search. So at this point, we have searched in the MeSH database. But now let's build a PubMed search from within MeSH using the Search Builder text box up at the top of the MeSH record. And this is something that does not exist in the other page we were looking at. So if you scroll up to the top, and you will see on the side here is the PubMed Search Builder. So I'm going to add to Search Builder here, and you see that the term I is here, and in brackets is MeSH. Now remember, because we are searching with a MeSH term, we will only retrieve Medline citations because those are the only citations with MeSH terms. Now let's click on Search PubMed underneath the box. And this brings us to PubMed. And you will see, here's my search term here in the search box, and you see we have over 400,000 results because this search is incredibly broad. Next, let's click on Advanced underneath the search box, as we were doing before, and scroll down to the History and Search Details. And here is the Details column. And I'm going to click on this chevron or right-facing arrow in the Details column to expand my search details. So now what is missing in our search details? Let me know in the chat. What are we not seeing here that we just discussed? Okay, I'm seeing some answers coming in. Right. The more narrow terms, we are not seeing the more narrow terms. We're not seeing eyebrow, iris, and all of that. And that is number 6 on your handout. Will your PubMed search details show all the more narrow terms in your search? No. They are included in your search automatically, but you do not see them in your PubMed search details. Let's look at one of the results for this search. Now, I could either use my back button or I could come to this results column here, and you could see the number of results I got, and I could click on that, and that would bring me right back to my results page. Now, to focus my search, I'm going to change how PubMed is sorting my results from most recent. You can see here it's sorted by most recent to best match. Now, you may recall, if you attended the first session of how PubMed works, that PubMed search results will be sorted by best match. But when you send a search from the MeSH database to PubMed, the results will be sorted by most recent. Now, these are the exact same results, they're just reshuffled. So I'm going to switch to best match. And you can see that I have the same number of results. And really, I've done this so I can grab a hold of the citation I wanted to show you. So here is number 4, Anatomy and Physiology of the Cornea. And I will click on that, and Rebecca could drop the PubMed ID number into the chat, and you could put that right into this search box here to get directly to this citation if you'd like to follow me along. So here I am in a citation, and I'm going to use the page navigation over on the side of the page to take a look at the MeSH terms. So if I click on that, it will jump me down the page to the MeSH terms. Notice that I is not included in the list of MeSH terms. So why is that? Why do we not see I in the MeSH terms? Yes, this is because it exploded to the more narrow terms, and cornea is one of the more narrow terms, more specific terms. Our search for I automatically exploded to search for citations indexed with the more narrow terms below I, and cornea is one of those terms. So to review, to understand what terms are included in your search results, first you will check the PubMed search details and see what you can find there. And then you could also consult the MeSH database. In the MeSH database, you will find the more specific terms listed below your search term. And that is number 7 on your handout. Check your PubMed search details and the MeSH database record to identify the MeSH terms that will be included in your PubMed search. Okay, so I want to get back to MeSH. And earlier I said that if you are on any PubMed page, you could continue scrolling down the page to this grayed area and click on the link to MeSH. And that's how I'm going to do it. Okay. And I am going to leave you here while I go back to my slides. I have a short exercise for you to reinforce your understanding of automatic explosion. What other MeSH terms will be included in your PubMed search if you search using the MeSH term fear? Please start in MeSH for this exercise, and we are looking for one word. And once you have the answer, let me know in the chat. So you are starting in the MeSH database, and I'm seeing the answers coming in. Yes. Perfect. Yes, panic is the answer, and that is number 8 on your handout. I have a follow-up question. Where did you look to find your answer? What is the only place that'll show you all the terms that will be included in your search? Correct. The MeSH database, the exploded terms in the MeSH database. Okay. Let me go back into MeSH to look up fear to confirm this. So I'll come back to MeSH and put my term in here. And I'm going to select the first result and scroll down to the MeSH tree. We have emotions, fear, and panic. Okay, now I'd like to go back to my eye example briefly. And here I can use my recent activity to go back to the search that I was doing a few minutes ago. So if I click on I, it will bring me back to the MeSH record for I. As I mentioned, a question we hear a lot is, can you limit your search to a particular branch of the MeSH tree? And the answer is no. You cannot limit your search to a particular branch. By default, all the more narrow terms from all of the branches will be included in your search. However, you can completely turn off automatic explosion for a specific term and then add any additional terms of interest manually. Let me show you where to find the checkbox in MeSH to turn off automatic explosion. So here I'm in the MeSH record for I, and there is a box under here, underneath the subheadings. Do not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. If I click on that checkbox and add that to the search builder, you will see my search term I and MeSH no EXP, no explosion. At this point, you could add additional terms here. You can click into the box and add additional terms to your search and run your search that way. Now, that said, we like to caution people about using the no explosion feature because you might miss a relevant citation that was indexed with a more specific term. Let me go back to my slides. So what can I clear up? What additional questions do you have? So far, we've defined MeSH and entry terms, and we've looked at the hierarchical structure of MeSH, and we've talked about automatic explosion.
So a couple of things have come in. Julia just said that she missed how you got to MeSH, and I said, and the related terms. So first, I pointed out, and you may want to start in PubMed, that at the bottom of every PubMed page, there's a
Right.
link to MeSH. And do you mind clicking to your PubMed tab there and
Sure.
just scrolling down?
So on any PubMed page, if you scroll down here, there's a grayed out section. I know the last time I did this, I was very quick, but there's a link right here that will take you right to MeSH.
And there's another link if you scroll up
Oh,
just a
right.
little,
Yeah.
yeah, and then under the in the explore column. So, and then of course I have it bookmarked in my,
Right.
um, depending on how much you use that. So
Yeah.
that's the answer to that. The other question, and I know you're going to get to it a little later. I can't recall who it came from, but it was, and bear with me as I scroll on my notes here. Oh yeah, what does restricting to MeSH major topic do? And I'm pretty sure you're
Ah,
going to be, I don't know if you want to
yes.
talk about that now, or I think you're
No,
getting,
we'll get to that. And that's one
okay,
of my favorite things, actually.
wonderful. So,
Yeah.
and let me just double check here. Yeah, nope, those are the only questions that have come in thus far.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to talk about the four different types of MeSH terms, which is number 9 on your handout. So the first type of MeSH term is a MeSH heading. MeSH headings represent concepts found in biomedical literature. We've looked at head, eye, and fear. Subheadings are used in combination with MeSH headings to focus on a particular aspect of an article, and that is number 10 on your handout. Subheadings add specificity to a heading, and we'll explore subheadings in a moment. Publication types describe the type of material being indexed, such as a review article or a comment in a journal. And lastly, we have supplementary concept records. Supplementary concept records are also known as SCRs. Most supplementary concept records describe chemicals and drugs, which are referred to as substances in PubMed. I'll show you where to find the substance information in a PubMed citation in a bit. So let's go back to MeSH. I'm going to open it up in the on the home page here. Okay, so we will start by looking at headings. There are about 30,000 headings in MeSH. So here I'm in the MeSH database and I'm going to enter albuterol. Well, make sure I spell it correctly. And I am going to click on this first result for albuterol. Okay, so here I am in the albuterol record. The next type, so that's a heading. Now the next type of MeSH term is a subheading, and here are the subheadings here. These are used in combination with a MeSH heading to focus on a particular aspect of a MeSH heading. And there are over 70 MeSH subheadings. So I'm going to stay in the albuterol record and scroll down here. Oh, wait a second. Sorry. So yes, here are the, sorry. Okay, so if we are interested in learning about adverse effects of albuterol, we could check the checkbox here and then go to the search builder. Oh, let me clear that and add to search builder. So here you see albuterol and then /, which will always indicate that the next word or words are a subheading, and then MeSH in brackets. And so we can look up the definition of any subheading in MeSH. So if you're able, please go to MeSH in a new, window. Let me go back to this one. Let me go back to the home page here. All right, so here I'm in MeSH, and I'm going to look up adverse effects. So now I'm looking up adverse effects in MeSH. And you see that the first result is adverse effects, and in brackets it says subheadings. Subheadings are also arranged hierarchically, and they explode just like MeSH headings. So you stay here and while I go back to my slides. So here. So if you managed to get to MeSH and did that albuterol search with me, let me know what other subheadings will be included in the search we just ran. Let me know in the chat. What subheadings will be included? Yes. For adverse effects. Yes, I might have lost a few people when I was doing that search, but I was looking, I'll show you in a moment, but poisoning and toxicity are are the are right. So let me go back to adverse effects here. So I've searched for adverse effects in MeSH, and I'm selecting my first result, which is adverse effects as a subheading. And when I click on that, there is a MeSH tree as well. And the only terms below adverse effects are poisoning and toxicity. So if we ran a search with adverse effects attached to albuterol, we would bring in citations that have been indexed with adverse effects and one or more narrow subheadings below adverse effects, and that would be poisoning and toxicity. So remember that subheadings can also explode, and that is number 11 on your handout. Do subheadings explode? Yes. To see all the subheadings and their more narrow terms, we will click on the subheadings category right here. And again, there are over 70 subheadings in MeSH currently. Let's go back to the MeSH record for albuterol. And I'm going to use, again, in my recent activity, I'm going to go back to albuterol here. Here I'm in the MeSH record for albuterol. And I'm going to clear my search box here. Notice that we don't see 70 subheadings. The only subheadings that are available for use with this specific MeSH heading are the ones that are available to describe an article in PubMed with albuterol. So let me say that again. Only subheadings that are available for use with this specific term to describe an article in PubMed will appear here as an option. So I will check for my next demonstration, supply and distribution. Now, if you select more than one subheading, your subheadings will be combined with OR, and your results will include records with any of the selected subheadings, and that is number 12 on your handout. Selecting more than one subheading in the MeSH database record will combine the terms with OR, so records with any of these subheadings will be retrieved. So I will select economics. So here I'm in albuterol and I've selected economics and supply and distribution, and I'm adding them to the search builder. And you will see albuterol / economics. The / indicates that it's a subheading, or albuterol / supply and distribution. Now you could edit this or to and, so I could do it like that. And this would narrow your search to find citations that include both subheadings. Okay, so let me uncheck. Let me clear this and uncheck economics. So notice below the list of subheadings, there's a checkbox next to restrict to major topic. And you can go ahead and check that box. Now, during the indexing process, the major point of an article is identified, and a major designation is applied to the MeSH heading or to a MeSH heading / subheading combination that represents the major topic. When we add this combination to the search builder, so I'm still in albuterol, and I kept the supply and distribution. I got rid of the economics, but I chose restrict to MeSH major topic, and I added this to my search builder. This is one way to focus your search, and this is my favorite way to focus a search. And for those of you who work in an academic setting, this can be a good tool to help students get to that infamous, I need 3 good articles on any given topic. So if I click on the button that says Search PubMed, you will see I've got 4 results, which is a nice tidy amount of results. So Rebecca, are there any questions? This isn't a technical question place, but I want to make sure people are following.
No, nothing new came in since our last question break.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's take a look at one of the results, one of these 4 results. And this is this implementation and evaluation of a stock albuterol program for students with asthma. And Rebecca will drop the PubMed ID number into the chat if you would like to get directly into this citation. Now, I want to take a look at the MeSH terms here, and I will use the page navigation over on the side to jump me down the page to the MeSH terms. So notice that albuterol / supply and distribution is in the list. We told PubMed that we wanted citations with this heading subheading combination, and that's what we got. Also notice the asterisks after this combination. And this indicates that the MeSH term albuterol and the subheading supply and distribution was identified as a major topic of this article. And that is number 13 on your handout. Major points of an article are marked with an asterisk. An article can have more than one major designation applied to it, and this one does. So here we have albuterol supply and distribution, asthma / drug therapy, bronchial dilator agents, supply and distribution, and then down here, nebulizers and vaporizers, supply and distribution, school health services, organization and administration, and school nursing. These are all identified as major topics of this article. Let me go back to my slides. Okay, so we've talked about headings and subheadings. Are there any questions? I guess I jumped the gun on the questions.
No, that's okay. Um, well, something just came in.
Mhm.
How are the topics identified by human indexers, question mark?
I believe they're both. And the title and the statement of purpose is used to identify the major topic. And there's typically about between 4 and 7 major topics for a research article. And if it's a letter or an editorial, there's fewer.
And I will say that I think at this point in PubMed's life, um, that most indexing is actually done automatically. There is
Mhm.
some human oversight, but so it's going to be algorithmic.
The other thing is you can get in touch with PubMed if you ever see anything that doesn't seem right to you, and they'll look into it.
Nothing else in chat.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at the third type of MeSH term, which is publication types. A publication type can describe the format of a publication being indexed, such as a letter, a case report, an editorial or review article. It can also describe the research study method, like a clinical trial or an observational study, and it can describe the source of funding for the research, such as NIH or CDC. And that is number 14 on your handout. A publication type can describe the format of a publication, the type of research study, or the funding source for the research. Let me go back to MeSH. So I will click on here to get back to the MeSH homepage. And I'm going to type in clinical trial. Oops, get out of my caps. Clinical trial. And you can do this along with me if you'd like. No S on the end, just clinical trial. And the first result is clinical trial as a publication type. I will select that. Now, just like the MeSH headings and subheadings, publication types are arranged hierarchically and in the MeSH database. And a search for a particular publication type will automatically explode to include the more specific publication types below it in the hierarchy. That said, if you're interested specifically in looking for phase 3 clinical trials, then that is the term you should use in your search. We can click on the publication type category to take a look at the list of publication types. And just a note that not all of these terms are available for PubMed searching. Some of these are only for the National Library of Medicine catalog. For example, bookplate right here is not a publication type cited in PubMed, but it can be found elsewhere in the NLM catalog. So if you want to know how NLM defines any of these publication types, you can look them up in the MeSH database. I'm going to move over to PubMed in another tab. Rebecca has another PubMed ID to share in the chat so that we can see how publication types are identified. And my number is 319-200-54. And this brings me to the effective bleaching agents and toothpaste on enamel. And you can see up here, there is a label that says randomized control trial. Not all citations will have a publication type label here, but you can find them at the bottom of a citation record, either by scrolling down, or you could go back to this page navigation section here and look for the publication types that will jump you down the page. Okay, any questions about publication types?
Not yet.
Okay.
I could, if you want to click on your publication type tab, that's,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe go back one, use your back button one, because we were
Yeah,
looking, okay, I'm sorry, and back again.
yeah.
I just wanted to point out, so we had clinical trial publication type, which is describes, what the citation is about, the results of a trial. And then you also see below it clinical trials as topic. If you were to use that particular, and you'll see that for most of the publication types, there's going to be a publication type tag, and then it has one as topic. Those are citations about clinical trials or about randomized controlled trials, etc. So we get that
Okay.
question. And nothing else in chat, though.
Okay. All right, now let's look at supplementary concept records, also known as SCRs. SCRs are quite a bit different than all the other types of MeSH terms we've looked at. So here we are in MeSH. Let me click on this to get to the home page. And I will type in the term Wolframin protein, and Rebecca could provide that in the chat if you would like to search along. I get two results, and we can see the first result is a supplementary concept here, and I will click on that link. So here I'm in the record for Wolframin protein as a supplementary concept. So what is the different and what's the same about this record type compared with the other MeSH records that we've been looking at? So just let me know in the chat. We see some differences and some similarities.
Do you want to scroll down a bit so people can, if in case they weren't able to go, just
Okay,
so we can see a whole page and then
sure. So that is
thing.
that most of it. Right. Yes, the differences are there's no hierarchy, there are no subheadings, there's no major topic checkbox, and you cannot turn off the explosions, but as noted, we see entry terms and we have a definition. Perfect. So let me go back to my slides here in advance. We can look up supplementary concepts in the MeSH database and use them for searching in PubMed. However, supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH hierarchy, and that is number 15 on your handout. Supplementary concepts are not part of the hierarchy. They reside outside of the tree structure. So if you think of the other types of MeSH terms we've talked about as being in the tree structure, you might think of SCRs as being like a tire swing attached to a specific branch of the hierarchy. There are about 300,000 supplementary concepts in the MeSH database, and new ones can be added daily, Monday through Thursday, to keep up with changes in the literature. SCRs can graduate to a full MeSH term, but you can't really tell that by looking at the MeSH record. There's a team at the National Library of Medicine that monitors SCRs and decides when they can graduate. Remember, the other three types of MeSH terms, headings, subheadings, and publications are updated annually. So let me go back to my Wolframin protein here. So supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH tree, but we see that they are attached or mapped to a specific branch. And here we see that represented in the record by heading mapped to, right here, membrane proteins in this case. So let's search this term, Wolframin protein, in PubMed. Once again, I can use this add to search builder and then search PubMed. And I've got 402 results. Once again, I will reshuffle this to best match because when I send it from MeSH, it sorts to most recent. And Rebecca can put another PubMed ID in the chat, but I am looking for this highly accurate protein structure prediction result. So here I am in a citation, and I'm interested in learning about the substances section. You may recall that I said that most SCRs are drugs or chemicals, which PubMed refers to as substances. So I will use this page navigation over here and go down and click on substances, which jumps me down the page. Both MeSH headings and supplementary concepts can be in the substances section. So just above here of the substances are the MeSH terms here. And we see that membrane proteins are in the MeSH terms and in the substances. But we do not see Wolframin protein in the MeSH terms because it is not a MeSH term. We do see it down here in substances. So let me go back to my slides here. Those are the four types of MeSH terms: headings, subheadings, publication types, and supplementary concept records. So do you have any questions? I know this is a lot of material.
Nothing yet, but we can, I'm sure those fingers are typing.
Yes, I
So,
know. I know when you're on this side of it, it seems like a long time, but if you're typing, it's not.
okay, so a question. Is there a limit on the number of levels of subheadings? A number of level of, so I'm not sure I fully, oh, well, I'm not sure I fully understand that. So Andrea, so I get, for example, I'm thinking, and I know I'm going to talk about the term I. We looked at I and it's in multiple branches and it exploded and there are a bunch of terms underneath it. Okay. How many subheadings can okay. So that's the question. How many subheadings can a heading have? It could be a lot.
Yes.
I suppose, but that's just based on what indexers have found in the literature, you probably don't, and Margot said what there are over 70 to choose
Right.
from, and not all terms are going to have all 70, but, and of course, you're not going to want to use everything that's been applied to a specific term because they're not necessarily connected, right? Adverse effects is not necessarily connected to economics.
If you're doing a literature search, i- it's always a great idea to try different things. And so you could try the subheading combinations, you could try subheadings just with the search term itself. Um,
Oh, so she says, so if it has a subheading, so I, and let's just say, I don't know what to choose here, chemistry, and
mhm.
then we search with that combination, are we going to get the subheadings that chemistry has? This cornea that has a so,
Yes, that was the albuterol. I think it gets back to the albuterol example where you're looking at adverse effects, and then the adverse effects itself would explode as well.
okay, yeah. Did we finally get to the bottom of that, Andrew? It only took 3 or 4 ways to ask it, so thank you. Good.
Okay. It's good. This is a lot of information, so it's great that you're asking questions.
That's all for now.
Okay. All right. So, oops, let's, sorry, not not there. Okay, let's pull this all together by reviewing all the components of a MeSH record. So I will go back to MeSH here. I will go back to the home page here. And I'm going to go back to where we started with myocardial infarction. So oh, I'm going to search with heart attack. That's what I'm going to search with. So I searched with heart attack, and it automatically mapped me to myocardial infarction, which is the MeSH term associated with the entry term of heart attack. So here on the MeSH record, the next thing we see is a definition of myocardial infarction. Not all terms have a definition, but these are, if there are definitions, they are the ones that are used by the National Library of Medicine. The next component you see is the year introduced, in this case, 1979. This indicates that you can get citations going back to at least 1979 in PubMed. Now, not all MeSH terms have a date. If a term doesn't have a date associated with it, it indicates that the term has been around since the origins of MeSH. The origins of MeSH are from 1946. Obviously not an online database at that point, but that is the origins of MeSH, and that term can be used to search all the Medline citations back to 1946 if there's no date listed. We also see a date introduced, and this date isn't relevant to searching, so we don't need to pay attention to that date. The year a term was added, this 1979, is what's going to affect our search, and that's what I'll focus on. MeSH terms are added to the system throughout the year, but only published once a year during the end of the year processing that happens in December. So a term might be added in March 1991, but won't go into effect until January 1992 during the end of year processing. Now, sometimes you will see two dates. I will go back to the search box up here and put in heart assist devices. And here we see two dates. This is an example of a MeSH term with two dates. It means that you can use heart assist devices to retrieve citations indexed as far back as 1986, but the MeSH term for this concept did not become heart assist devices until 1990. Prior to 1990, the concept of heart assist devices was represented by other MeSH terms. Then in 1990, the term heart assist devices was added to the MeSH vocabulary, and at that point, NLM did a find and replace for all the citations previously indexed with these other terms and applied heart assist devices to them. So we know we can search heart assist devices back through 1986. But what if you wanted to do a historical search for earlier publications? To be comprehensive in your searching, you would want to consider the previous indexing terms when they are included in the MeSH record. And here there are 3. So if we scroll down, we're in the MeSH record for heart assist devices. And if we scroll down here below the entry terms, we see previous indexing right here, and we see assisted circulation and the dates, heart, artificial and the dates, and pacemaker, artificial and the dates there. If you do not see previous indexing here under the entry terms in a record that you are looking at, and you are wanting to do that deep dive into the history, just look for the, go up the MeSH tree to the sub-branches here above and run a search there. Okay, let me go back to my heart attack search by using, this is my recent activity. Okay, so back here, we've talked about the definition, the year introduced. Now here are the subheadings for this particular term. And then there's the 2 checkboxes, restrict to MeSH major topic, which I've always found very useful. Then the do not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. And then after that, there are the entry terms. Entry terms are synonyms or variant terms that you can use in MeSH or PubMed to be connected with the preferred MeSH term. So if you scroll past the entry terms, sometimes you'll see a C also. And these are terms you may want to consider exploring as they are related to this concept in an important way. And then finally, we see the hierarchy for this particular term, which lets you know whether more narrow terms will be included in your search. Okay, so I hope you feel, we've brought it all together. I hope you feel that you have a good understanding of the MeSH record and the different types of MeSH terms. Like all complex interfaces, this gets clearer every time you use it. So I encourage you to continue to explore. Any questions, Rebecca?
Not exactly. Well, let's see. Debbie typed something, but I don't know what that means. It's like,
Oh,
maybe she is confused or frustrated. I don't know what that is. Or maybe
okay,
a book sat on her space
right.
bar.
Or a cat.
Right, a cat. We're going to go with cat. Uh, okay, so let's see here. Kara asks, why is the tree repeated on the page? Oh, and do you mean
Oh, right
multiple?
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here are the different MeSH trees here.
The
So
branches.
yeah, the branches. And
They're all in. So if you scroll to the first one there,
mhm,
okay, so that is the diseases category. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, diseases. And then
heart
cardiovascular. Yeah, gets more
versus,
specific.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there are different sub branches. This is a great question. So this is diseases, cardiovascular, heart. This is diseases, cardiovascular, vascular. And this is diseases, pathology, pathological conditions. and so on. But all of these sub branches will be searched. And that's what when we were talking about the eye example, all of them will be searched. And some of them are the same and some may be different.
Yeah, I think in I, those look like they may have almost all been the same,
Yeah,
but in I, the I search we did before, I think those were all different,
right.
eyebrows and eyelids and one thing and cornea.
Yeah, these do look like, yeah, good catch. They do look all the same.
Okay, hold on. Can you use not to override the automatic mapping in multiple trees? Um, I think the short answer is yes. And actually, that was a question from another session that I was looking at earlier today. And so, yes, it says, but you would have to, if you wanted any of the narrower terms, you would have to then add them, manually, so to speak. So I want cornea, not this, and I want this, not that. And in some branches, I think, oh, I wish there's a term, darn that. I mean, some terms, mesh terms can just have lots of terms below it. So, and lots of branches. So you might be doing a lot of stuff manually. But I think if you scroll to the tree on this one, let's see something. This is the one where they're all the same. I'm just trying to think this out a little. Now I think if you do, can you use not to override ATM to multiple trees? So if you say do not explode, that's going to apply to all of them, but I'm not sure if I can get any more, I'll give a better answer.
Mm.
But thank you for that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Kara said, okay, so would results be different if you chose a different tree like the vascular tree in this particular? So if we scroll down,
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends where you start, Kara. So if you start with the vascular term, if you were to click on under vascular disease, if you were to click on that and then run your search, use it that way. But if you were sending myocardial infarction to the search box, it would not matter where you begin, but
Yeah, because it's going this way rather than up
yes,
the
right.
tree.
Explosion goes down the tree, not up. And Andrea says, I wonder if you could not out vascular, for example. But you're not, so you'd have to say not vascular diseases. But again, which term are you searching with, Andrea? If you're searching with myocardial infarction, you're going down the tree and it's not going to include vascular diseases.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.